alcohol and law and order issues. Paul Henderson, your alcohol policy is based around the banned drinkers register. Where is the proof that antisocial behaviour and crime is actually on the decline when you don't release crime statistics in the way you used to?
Well, Louisa, there was a very complex and comprehensive report released on the first 12 months of the banned drinkers register being in operation. In that report, police very clearly said that there were 10,000 fewer calls to police for antisocial behaviour events right across the Northern Territory. So those statistics are in that report. The report also showed that the biggest 12-month decrease in pure alcohol consumption in the Territory's history, 71,000 litres less of pure alcohol consumed in the Northern Territory. Now, this is early days for the banned drinkers register, but all groups out there, whether they're legal groups, whether they're Indigenous groups, whether they're health groups, are saying that there are signs that things are turning around, that this should be persevered with. And I can't believe, Terry, that you're going to scrap a scheme that everybody is saying needs to be persevered with. What you're putting in place, you haven't got one independent third-party commentator of any repute saying that what you're going to put in place is any better.
Well, your scheme doesn't work.
Well, I mean, 71,000 litres is a lot less grog consumed
Paul, do you
in the
know how
Northern
many
Territory.
litres of alcohol are sold in a year?
Well, there's 71,000 litres less sold.
Do you know how much? Do you know what percentage that is of the whole?
It's the biggest 12-month decrease in the Territory's history.
There have been similar decreases in the past, not to that same degree.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
It's the biggest decrease in the Territory's
without the banned
history.
drinkers register.
Well, Terry, your scheme isn't going to see
I think
one extra person.
You haven't got any statistics that back up your claim that this thing works. You're now making
there's a full 12 months report that's saying it's working. Police say
cherry-pick data. Data. Honestly, it is. Have an honest look at it. You have tampered with the evidence, so we can't judge it. And even in the own figures that you brought out recently, it shows that violent assaults have actually increased. Now,
that's because of domestic violence.
There's always an explanation.
You take those figures
There's always
out.
an explanation. So you can play with the data to try and suit your story. But I think the key here is that you're claiming that the 72,000 litres that are now not in circulation are directly as a result of the banned drinkers register. You are, aren't you?
Well, that's what the report says. That's what the report says.
So what effect would the increased cost of living have on purchase of alcohol? What effect would the decline in tourism numbers have on that amount of alcohol?
And
what effect would 4,000 people leaving the Territory have on that figure? And bear in mind, that figure is actually a very small percentage of the total alcohol consumed in the Territory, a very small percentage. And I think it's pretty brave of you to go and claim, in the evidence of tampered evidence, and now to claim that this therefore is evidence that this thing works. And you haven't factored in the people that have all left, the tourism that...
Terry Mills, on evidence, what evidence do you have that boot camps, which is one of your planks of your law and order policy, will actually work?
Well, the boot camps aren't even funded. You haven't put $1 to them.
Have.
No, you haven't. Look at your costings. There is not $1 for boot camps in your costings, Terry. Not $1.
There is.
There isn't.
And the evidence is that people being given responsibility and held to account are the ones that have the greatest capacity to change behaviour.
What evidence do you have that they actually work?
Well,
where have they worked?
There are schemes that in fact, I'll give you a very practical scheme where someone who broke into my own home could have gone into Dondale, but instead I followed him through the system. He was apprehended, he went to court, and he was put into a program like a boot camp type program.
It wasn't a boot camp. It was Alan Brahmany's camp. It wasn't
Alan Brahmany's camp, but it was that kind of program where he was required to be accountable for his actions and required to make different decisions and given additional skills, and he has since that time gone down a completely different path. I believe that if you intervene at the point of personal responsibility, people then can make better decisions. But if you go chasing forever, alcohol itself is the problem, you then exempt people from personal responsibility and you lose the capacity for people's behaviour to change.
Can I just say, that young fellow who broke into your home, Terry, went into one of the diversion camps that we already fund. And you're saying it was a success. We're already doing it, Terry.
Yeah, but
you're just using language that you're not funding.
No.
There is not $1
there is.
in. Well, there isn't. I could, if I had your costings here, I'd put them in front of you and say, down this list of costings, where have you funded boot camps? Because it's not in there.
Yes, it is there. It's $5 million through existing programs.
Let's move on to remote seats, and most of which include the remote Indigenous populations. How vulnerable are you in the bush, Paul Henderson?
Oh, look, every election is always a contest, Louisa, and I'm very confident that all of our bush members, very hard-working bush members, very close to their electorates, I'm confident that all of them will be returned. But can I say, in saying that, absolutely don't take the bush for granted. As the Chief Minister, I've been out to so many communities over the last 4 years. I believe that I've personally got really good relationships with people in the bush, and any fair analysis and observation would see that over the last 4 years, over $2 billion has been spent on new houses, new health clinics, new infrastructure.
Much of which is federal funding.
Yeah, in partnership with the Territory Government. We're the only Territory Government in history that's put nearly $200 million into the housing program. All of the other states that are part of that national agreement in terms of Indigenous housing, none of the other states have put any of their money into those programs, Louisa. So, any fair analysis would see that the infrastructure services in the bush are better than they have been, but there's still so much more to do, Louisa, and that's why we're making strong commitments this campaign.
Paul Henderson, what's your best bet for tomorrow's outcome?
Look, I'm not a betting man, Louisa. What I'm saying is that we're quietly confident that we will be returned, because I think people do believe that the Territory is heading in the right direction. And with all due respect to Terry, I think change would be a risk. Terry's run an entire campaign hiding his costings until right the last moment, and the contract that you've got with Territorians, I have to say, Terry, is not worth the paper it's written on. You talked about your 3-hub economy. You were going to grow food production in the Northern Territory, not 1 cent towards the Ord River scheme or increasing food production. You said that you were going to develop the tourism and education industries in the Northern Territory, not 1 cent towards expanding tourism or education development in the Territory, and you said you were going to expand mining. Well, I couldn't find anything in your costings either. I don't know how you're going to grow these industries, Terry, without actually committing any sort of financial support to them over and above
Terry Mills,
now.
what's your best bet for tomorrow's outcome?
Well, I agree with Paul in the first instance that I don't spend energy trying to read what I think's going to happen, because I think it's such an important thing, the decision that people who are living in Karama or Nightcliff, their decision, the decision that they make and what they weigh up. So I'm not going to encroach on that or read into that, but I know that there is a mood for change. They want debt dealt with. They want law and order dealt with, not just talked about. And they want to see a responsible government that takes matters seriously and focuses on the front line. And so they are the commitments that have been made, and I think the decision that they make tomorrow is going to be a very significant decision. We've got great opportunities in the Territory. We've got to manage those opportunities really well.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Terry Mills. Thanks, Paul Henderson. Good luck to you both tomorrow.
Thank you, mate.
Stay with the ABC for full election coverage as it happens on Saturday night. Have a great weekend.